Guys, and welcome back to the Rugby Down Under podcast. This is a brand new podcast. We actually started up last week. This is episode number 2, and this is a podcast where we speak all about international rugby, all the way through number 1, which is South Africa right now, down to the number 30, which is Germany. I don't think you would have thought you would have heard that name today. I know they are, they're sneaking up there for a European team you don't hear much about. They're still kind of sneaking. But today, guys, obviously we're going to be wrapping up all the rugby that happened in the last week. Not just me, BKRsport, but we are also here with the Kiwi lads. How are we doing, champion?
I am doing very well, thank you, mate.
Well, what do you think of the last weekend of games? Obviously, we stream a lot on BKRsport and also on the Kiwi lads. So if you want to be see a reaction to the game live, check us out when the games are on. But mate, what did you think about the games this week? Because you did a lot of them.
Yeah, we did back to back on Saturday through to Sunday morning, and it's one of those ones. Last week there was more rugby on, but this week it was more rugby in a compressed amount of time. So weren't a lot of breaks, but there was a lot of good rugby on. Few interesting moments as well, which I'm sure we will be covering in this episode as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was definitely it was a good week of rugby. There was a couple of interesting games. I really actually wanted to watch that Russia-Portugal game live, but that was actually on during the Wallabies and France game later on that Saturday night. But look, I thought that the games this week, we saw a World Cup qualifier where we saw one team actually qualify for the World Cup in 2023 that we'll get into in just a few moments. And we've actually got another one of those World Cup qualifiers there was another one that happened on the weekend too between Uruguay and Chile, I believe. Am I right there?
Yes, you are indeed.
Exactly right. So, guys, before we get into this, obviously, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget, this podcast comes out every single Wednesday, so the notification bell better be ready to go. And soon we might actually start thinking about chucking this on Spotify or Apple or whatever. We'll start mix it up so you guys can listen to it on the way home. But guys, let's start talking about what the rugby games this weekend, Hamish.
Pretty much. We had a lot of games, like I mentioned. The first one being Tonga versus Samoa, the second leg of their aggregate going towards that Group D of the Rugby World Cup 2023. Samoa able to get that win, 37 points to 15, so they were able to qualify. And I believe it was with around 79 to 28 point aggregate. So pretty comfortably there, which does now mean Tonga are going to be facing Cook Islands next week. This weekend, it is going to be the match. And then also on that same day, it was the All Blacks taking on Fiji. The All Blacks able to get a comfortable win, a lot more comfortable than the last match, but it was still a very good fight from the Fijians, 60 points for the All Blacks.
I am currently wearing my Fiji bloody rugby shirt now, but I'll tell you right, when I say this, I will be talking about the old Fiji game against New Zealand, and I wasn't impressed. But do go on.
Looking forward to it. 60 points to 13 for that one. Another game which I'm sure will get a lot of mention in this podcast is the game between the Wallabies and France, the third match of that series. Australia able to get that win of the series, 33 points to 30 in that final game. That game was the most separated in terms of points between those two sides in 3 matches with 3 points.
3 points.
Or first 2 points.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Wrong. Okay. Yeah, no, so 20, it was 2 points both games. And then obviously, this one was 3 points. So, yeah, fair enough. Crazy.
It's insane how close that whole series was. But of course, they will get a mention very soon as well. Then we saw Russia taking on Portugal, 26 points to Russia, 49 to Portugal. Actually, quite an entertaining game in terms of the tries that were being scored. Then we looked at Wales versus Argentina. Argentina were able to get the win, 33 points to 11. Now, last week, these two sides drew 20 to 20, but in this one, Argentina just a little bit above their opposition, Wales there, and able to get that win. Then the British and Irish Lions game, it was happening. It was up against the Stormers the last time that the British and Irish Lions are going to be playing till this weekend up against the Springboks in that very first test match. They were able to get the win, 49 points to the 3 of the Stormers. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, that's almost the first South African side that has been left scoreless in terms of the tries up against the British and Irish Lions.
I'm not too sure, but it's a big scoreline. It is a big scoreline.
It is indeed. And then also another game that we saw, probably the upset of the weekend. The Bulls were able to get the win over South Africa A, 17 points to 14. Yep. Now, they were 14-0 up, South Africa A, but then from there, the Bulls, they were able to fight back and they were able to steal that win. And then also another game for the Rugby World Cup qualifiers, Uruguay taking on Chile, and Uruguay able to get that win, 15 points to the 10, and they were all of the big matchups that we did have this weekend.
We're not really going to talk a great deal about the South Africa A today, but like it against the Bulls. But was it the same similar lineup in regards to majority of South African players?
They had a few double ups, but it was pretty much quite a few of those players. The likes of, they didn't have Colby, Etzebeth. They still had the likes of Apelele Fase, though, in that number 15 jersey, Quagga Smith. They had quite a few, but just not really all of those well-known guys. I guess the likes of de Klerk and everyone else were missing out, but it was still a very strong South Africa A side. And then to be beaten by the Bulls, they were playing aggressively.
Yeah, that's crazy,
in
man.
that game.
That is wild, yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what that does to the confidence of some of those Springbok players going in to the test match up against the British and Irish Lions.
Especially after how everyone's been talking about them going up against the British and Irish Lions when, last week. Was it last week? Yeah, when they beat them, the South Africa A versus British and Irish Lions. That was a very positive performance, and now obviously they've gone and lost in a very negative performance, I guess. So that is massive news around South Africa. But let's get into the rankings. Now, before I get into the rankings, I want to have a bit of a question mark here because I don't really get it. As an Australian, I don't really understand. So Australia obviously won the first game against France. The second game, they lost the game against France by the same margin, 2 points or whatever. Then obviously Australia has beaten France in game 3. Now, Australia went up after the loss 2-5, and France got pushed back to 6. The second game, Australia got pushed down to 7, and France got pushed up to 5. The third game, we saw Australia obviously win, and they're not above France. But they went above France, but now they've gone back below France. Can you answer this for me, mate? Because I don't get it.
I'm not sure how they do it, but I think, because it seems weird that if it was done off points differential kind of thing, which I don't think it is, it's kind of like those first 2 games with 2 and 2, and then you would think that 3 would end up escalating them.
But Australia were above France yesterday, but then today it's been updated, and they've is it just like they've changed the scoring, or like it's so random. But anyway, we'll just get into, that's just my query for World Rugby, if you ever watch this. But, I found that really interesting. But the rankings this week, guys, the biggest climbers, we had Argentina from 9 to 7. Obviously, they took down Wales in pretty solid fashion. And Ghana from 87 to 85, Algeria from 92 to 90, France from 6 to 5, and Portugal from 20 to 19. So the Portuguese are incoming. And just with this, I also want to throw this out there as well. It's we didn't really get to mention a great deal about this, but we did see a massive result in Zimbabwe, winning 101 to 3 over, I think it was Burkina Faso, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, just crazy. 101 to 3. That is just ridiculous. Biggest fallers of this week was Uganda from 41 to 51. Now, the reason for this is because they're ranked in 41. Algeria were ranked 97, and Algeria beat them 22-16. Algeria beat them 22-16. So 97 beat Uganda, who's in 41. Ridiculous. So they dropped massively from 41 to 51. Wales from 7 to 9. Russia from 21 to 23. Australia from 5 to 6, strangely enough, and Spain from 19 to 20. But the first game that we're going to get into today is the Stormers and the British Irish Lions game, which was 49 to 3 for the British and Irish Lions. What were your thoughts individually on this one?
I thought overall, from watching that game, that the British and Irish Lions, they seem pretty ready for those test matches. They've had a lot of games in South Africa. They're getting used to the conditions, getting used to that physical game of rugby that these South African sides can play. And now it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the Springboks side have had enough preparation. Like, they've got all the talent in the world down there, of course, in the likes of Colby, Faf de Klerk. Also, you could name plenty of their side. You could almost name the whole Springboks lineup, but it's just a question of whether or not they've had enough time to be able to gel like the British and Irish Lions have. Like, at this stage, like, he is just switching out everyone, Warren Gatlin, but it's still working. They seem to just be connecting out on the field. Like, in this match, something else to take into equation is the fact that for the first 20 minutes, I believe the Stormers were up 3-0. And then from there,
the Stormers were leading it. When I first looked at it, it was the Stormers were leading 3-0, yeah.
And then from there, they just kept on building. And an interesting situation in this game was there was only one try scored by a back for the British and Irish Lions.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, they did absolutely monster them through the forwards. But look, overall, man, what do you think is the biggest take from this? Because the reason why we're bringing this up is because there is all the players out from the Northern Hemisphere. And I say the Northern Hemisphere because it's pretty much the Northern Hemisphere teams without France. We all know this. What would be your biggest take in regards to this game, in regards to the British and Irish Lions going forward and their individual play performances? Because I haven't been absolutely thrilled with how they've been performing recently, obviously. I think they've had a couple of good play performances individually, but like Ali Price, I thought he was really good in the number 9, but we all know Conor Murray's going to probably get that position. So what would be your take on those individual guys and going back to their teams?
It's going to be interesting to see how they slot in, because do you know when the next internationals are for those players after the British and Irish Lions, or are they November?
Not too sure, no, not too sure. But it wouldn't be for quite some time, yeah.
And I guess it would almost be, for some of those guys, their next one is probably the United Rugby Championship, when that does start up, which is actually combined with some of those South African ex-Super Rugby sides.
Yeah.
So I feel like as long as they can try and continue some of this form that some of them are finding, like you mentioned, individual players, some of them have just been shining in this tour. And the fact that Alan Wynne-Jones, I believe, actually got a few minutes for the British and Irish Lions, he's somehow back.
Well, there was actually a moment where we thought he was going to get a try. That was so close to the line, and he was just trying. He got the ball and just pumped it, and he got the ball and just pumped it, but he couldn't get over the line, unfortunately. But I thought Ali Price was very good in this game, the number 9, as I was saying. Do you think he'll get the spot, or do you think Conor Murray will come back in?
I think they'll end up going Conor Murray for that one. I feel like they'll just go with maybe, because Ali Price, he is a very good player, but I feel like overall for consistency-wise, Conor Murray, he's going to give you a very solid performance. And it's one of those ones, I think maybe Ali Price could get a start in maybe the second match, though.
I think the only reason that Conor Murray would get it is because of what you're saying. I don't think that Ali's done anything wrong in regards to the matches that we've seen from the British and Irish Lions, because I think that, he's just been putting in solid efforts with his performances, and this was obviously one of my favourites personally. But, look, good win for them. They were down, though, early, and overall, like I said, I haven't been overall impressed, but they do play the Springboks this weekend, right?
Yep, that is exactly right.
So that'll be
2 a.m. your time, I believe.
2 a.m. my time, lovely. So 4 a.m. your time. Gee whiz, going to be getting up early for that one. But let's move into the next game, which was the Wales and Argentina game. Now, Wales are ranked in number 9. They were, I believe, in 6. They've dropped massively now to 9. Got Argentina, who have gone up to 7. Argentina wins 33-11. There was a lot of players out for Wales. Do you actually have the number? I think it was like 20-something plus, wasn't it?
20. I haven't actually seen that one, but if it's 20, that is...
It was ridiculous. Someone was saying on one of my live streams that it was over 20, and I thought, well, that's absolutely ludicrous. So if we're wrong, guys, please let us know in the comment section below. But someone said there was that many players out for Wales, which is incredible. But overall, you guys know my opinion of Wales. I think that I'm not here to insult them. I'm not here to say that they're not good. But I also am not surprised that they are currently sitting in 9th, which is not necessarily directly replicating only individually this little 2-game series against Argentina. But overall, I've seen this inconsistency for a while now. Yes, there are players out, but this is still your second best team, or even your third best team. I'd still say it's pretty much the second best, the B team there. But as we know, French's B and C team just competed with the Wallabies, who do have a couple players out here and there, but the French's B team and C team are still very well competitive. So what would you respond to that, in that I don't really believe in Wales going forward because of that reason?
I would say, this game, normally I try and give them as many props as I can, Wales. Yeah. But in this one, I also found with Argentina in this game, I'm not sure whether it was the conditions or whether it was just nerves or something, but something just didn't seem right almost for either teams. I was counting up the likes of knock-ons, handling errors and everything. Both sides hitting double figures for the knock-ons. And it's just one of those ones that every time, it's hard to find momentum in that game for either side when you're just ending up having a scrum every few minutes. And then, of course, they've had a yellow card in that game, was Amos, who was actually one of their better players, I felt.
Amos was very good. I actually thought he was incredible, yeah. Well, besides the car, I thought he was really good in this game.
And then they've also got, they've got a few of those, forwards, like Ross Moriarty, I believe it was.
No. Sorry. My bad. No, this was a game that he didn't perform well in. No, he had a shocker. My goodness me. No, I'm thinking of last week. Last week, he had a really good game. Yep. This week, he had a shocker. My goodness me, I'm all over the shop.
But yeah, Ross Moriarty, he reminds me a little bit of an Artie Savia figure.
Why did you agree with me?
I thought we were talking about just his recent form, not just in this one.
No, I was talking about this game, then I was like, wait a second. I'm thinking of last week when he was probably the best on the field for the Welsh, I thought, in a pretty, debatable game for them. But this week, he was the worst on the field, I thought.
Yeah, he didn't have a great game, to be fair. And then also, I felt like in that regard, as soon as you have your fullback, like we saw it for Argentina last week, as soon as you lose your fullback, it really does end up kind of changing your plans. Of course, this one was for only the 10 minutes, but that was probably the 10 minutes that Wales needed to really try and build up to being able to try and get back in that match. And then by then, unfortunately, once that yellow card came, it just seemed a little bit too far away. Too many penalties given away as well in that one with Nicolas Sanchez.
What were you also saying about the Artie Savea comparison?
Ross Moriarty, he reminded me a little bit of Artie Savea there. He was pretty much like he could hardly walk at that stage, but he was still like out there for Wales. They had made all their subs, and the coach actually had a sub in hand, but he decided to take one of the other loose forwards off. But Ross Moriarty, I think he made about 14 tackles, maybe one or two turnovers, and he just kept on like charging hard at the line, even though like the leagues don't want to work for some of these loose forwards, but somehow they just keep going. Papali's a bit the same in terms of the fact that unless you chop their leg off, they're still going. Like they will still contest every time.
What I was confused about with this game as well with the Welsh is that obviously they started off better. I think they scored the first try of the game, and I thought, okay, well, here we go. Maybe the good old Wales is back here, and we might be able to see them improve from last week. Because as I just mentioned before, and on last week's Rugby Down on the podcast, is that they weren't good last week, and people made excuses for them. But Argentina had 50 minutes of a red card, and were able to, tie that game, draw the game, and only conceded in the last 10 minutes to actually tie it. Otherwise, they would have won Argentina, right? So I was expecting a better performance this week. I was, and I did not see it at all. I saw a massive regress. I thought that Argentina, despite not looking absolutely unbelievable themselves, they kicked a lot of penalties, didn't they? This was game they had a lot of penalties, didn't they?
Yeah, they had quite a few, even with a couple missed attempts as well from Sanchez, but still able to keep on slotting them over.
Yeah, crazy. My question about Argentina, though, is yes, they look okay right now, but they're also, I guess, being shaded by a really average Welsh team at this current moment. Now we move into the Rugby Championship. Are they going to be able to compete with a Wallabies team that we've obviously just seen one of the most gutsy performances from them in a good 20 years? An All Blacks team that is not at its peak right now, but still has the absolute qualities we saw against Fiji in the second game. And then, has South Africa confirmed for the Rugby Championship yet?
I believe they're locked in for another few years. So I think
are they confirmed? Because last year, obviously, they said, late on, said they weren't going to come, and that's why it ended up being the Tri-Nation. So have they confirmed they're actually coming?
I don't think they actually have yet, but I think it's more likely than last year at this stage with the amount of rugby that has been going on for them.
Okay, because obviously I really want to see Wallabies, Springboks, All Black Springboks, because we haven't seen that in a while. I don't really care too much about Springboks in Argentina, but what would your thoughts be on that? Because I think Argentina are good, but I don't necessarily. Where are they? They're currently ranked. Probably, I think they're 7th now. I think they're 7th. I would still have Wales above them. And if you go and have a look at the rankings, I personally believe in Scotland a little bit more than Argentina. I would probably put Argentina in 9th based off what I've seen, simply because Wales do have all these players that have come out. I wasn't a great deal impressed with Argentina, but they still got the win against a youthful Welsh team. But now they come up against the big boys with their full teams in New Zealand, in South Africa, and with Australia.
I think they're going to struggle a little bit for those first game or two, but we did see no one expected them to do well in last year's Tri-Nations. They were the team that had no preparation, no time at all to try and get ready for it, coming over from the other side of the world in tricky times. And they competed. They were able to take it to the Wallabies. I know Reece Hodge may have
Stop bringing that man. Stop bringing that man's name up. Stop it. I did hear he wanted to take that kick at the end of the Wallabies game, and I would have projectile vomited. But go on with what you're saying.
And they're also able to get that big win for the first time ever over the All Blacks. So I feel like at this stage they're almost used to being that underdog story of no one backs them. And then maybe they will be able to do something similar. Because, they finished in 2nd for that Tri-Nations last year as well.
They did, but we all know what we... Do you want my opinion again? Do you want my opinion a damn well again, I tell you? Look, yes, of course, they are the underdog story. And yes, of course, they are able to grind out a performance from you. They are a very nitty-gritty, just... I don't even know if I could. They're a very tough team, very grindy, tough team. But I don't know. I feel like, yes, last year they had a lack of preparation and whatnot, but it was still a really mess of a year. And I still will tell you that was a very good performance by Argentina. And I thought they were unbelievable. But You know my thoughts about the Tri Nations last year. I think that Argentina are getting shaded right now with these two performances, though, against a pretty below par Welsh team. I think they have been in the most recent weeks. Now, will Wales be like that when they get their players back? Absolutely not. They'll jump up to probably around, you could argue, anywhere between 7th and, who's 4th right now? 4th is Ireland. Honestly, you could throw Wales anywhere from 7 through 4 when they have their full team around. Because Ireland, you don't necessarily guarantee, but anyone from that area besides maybe Argentina and Scotland. So France, Ireland, Australia, and Wales are pretty much 4, 5, 6, and 7, and you can throw around those names as much as you want. But France with the straight team, I believe they probably go to 3rd over England. But is there anything else you want to say about that game?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just the case of it really didn't go the way that I expected it to, in terms of, like, we saw the game between Manu Samoa and Tonga, and that game actually had less handling errors while it was bucketing down at FMG Stadium than it had on a sunny day up in the Northern Hemisphere in Cardiff for this game.
And Argentina brings that out of you, though. They always just seem to bring that out of you, your handling errors, like last year's Tri Nations, where they forced a lot of errors from Australia and the All Blacks.
I think they're intimidating individuals, like their fullback, like Matera, Facundo Isa, and also Rodrigo Bruni. Like, he had a very good game, Bruni, for Argentina. Like, so I feel like it's one of those ones, you're getting hit hard in the tackle, and it's a little bit like what happened for the All Blacks in that first game up against Fiji. No one really wanted to draw and pass because you're going to get whacked in the torso if you do. But yeah, they are fun to watch.
Next up, guys, we're going to be moving into a massive game, obviously, and this was the second game of the New Zealand versus Fiji affair. Now, Fiji are currently in 11th and New Zealand are in 2nd. I'm wearing my Fiji rugby shirt right now, but I'm very disappointed. I am disappointed because I thought that New Zealand played well, don't get me wrong. They played like New Zealanders. They played like the All Blacks, but there's still errors in their game. We saw for the first 30 minutes where Fiji were very, very good, in my personal opinion, to be going up hard against the All Blacks, and actually led at the 30-minute mark, I believe. But, oh no, maybe not the 30-minute mark, but they were leading at one stage. But then the All Blacks just took it away, and Fiji looked very error-ridden and slow and tired and no structure. They had structure in the first 30 minutes, like we were talking about last week. Threw it out the window. Threw it completely out the window after 30 minutes. What is your thoughts on this game as an All Blacks fan? What would you say your thoughts were about Fiji specifically?
It's one of those ones. I was giving Fiji credit before the game, and I said they're going to win the first 20 minutes of this match. All Blacks are going to take the last 20, but Fiji are going to have the better of the first 20, and it's what happens in that middle section between 20 minutes and 60 that's really going to shape the game. And I feel like that
was exactly what happened,
yeah, it kind of hit the nail on the head in that regard. Fiji, I felt bad for them at times because it was those handling errors that didn't need to happen, which then, like, 2 of the times that they dropped the ball just outside and inside of their 22, scrum feed to the All Blacks, set play try. And it happened twice. And I feel like that was one of those ones that the All Blacks, they were very clinical when it came to, like, punishing Fiji for the mistakes. And unfortunately, also 15 penalties against Fiji in this game, which wouldn't have been helping them out too much in that regard.
I don't think the referee had an impact in this game. That was what I was looking for after last week's horrific display from the referee that arguably cost them an opportunity. This week, had no problems with it. I thought that Fiji were ill-disciplined. They were back to their ill-disciplined ways. I don't know if it was because they were tired. I wouldn't assume it would be because they're tired, because it's not like they've had a great deal of games. And then again, that could be match fitness, I guess. After last week's performance, we were expecting them to, I don't know, have that first 20 minutes, but I didn't think they'd fall off as badly as they did. Like 60-13 is a big scoreline. 60-13 is a big scoreline, especially for Fiji, who I would say are, 9-10 area. They are in 11th, but they're better than Japan. They're absolutely better than Japan. They can start pushing above Scotland as well, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. But I thought that with Fiji, Nandolo wasn't exactly fantastic in this game. I didn't like Johnny Dyer in this game. I had him as my play performance of the week last week. Didn't think he had a great game. I don't think anyone really had a good game. I thought that Lamani was good for the first stages. I thought that he really did bring a lot more. I thought he was actually probably one of the better players for Fiji on the day. Would you disagree?
No, he was up there for me. Also, the 2 centres, which in this one was Bully Rora. Bully Rora is the name. Rora, actually, I believe this is his second match. I think he had his debut off the bench last week for Fiji, if I'm not wrong. And then also Maya Thalevu Also, I felt in that midfield with the amount of tackles that they were making, like they were working hard, but they just didn't get that ball in hand enough to be able to have a big enough impact kind of on attack.
Do you know
Did
who
I say the name completely wrong?
No. What I'm about to say is, do you know who I thought the best Fijian player of the day was? Sevu Reece. Sevu Reece was the best Fijian player of the day. Yeah, I got to get it in there because you guys know he's bloody Fijian, but no, it's what it is. You know, it's all part of the game. But we've got a Tongan Thor in the Wallabies team, you know what I'm saying? But you may as well have a crack when you possibly can. But do you think this impacts Fiji going forward? Do you think that this is just a one-off, or do you think this is still showing that they are inexperienced in the sense of not being able to put two quality performances together?
I think they've made like big stepping stones towards the right direction over these two games against the All Blacks. Like that first game, arguably probably one of the best Fijian displays that we've seen in a little while. Would you agree with that a little bit?
Yeah, they played really well against the Wallabies in the World Cup too, though, until they fell apart as well. That they were leading quite significantly actually against the Wallabies in the World Cup, and then Wallabies still won that game by 21 points, or something like that. But yeah, look, I think that's probably the best. I would say it's still a better performance by them the last week. So yeah, I'd say I would nearly go as far as say that was one of the best performances of Fiji nearly ever, besides that last 20 minutes.
Because like if they can keep on like improving in that regard, of course the second game it didn't go their way at all. Really, there wasn't really too much.
They had the foundation though. The first 30 minutes, they had the foundation.
Yeah, that first the way they started, I was thinking, oh, okay, we got another good match on our hands in terms of it being close up until a little bit later on. Because like Johnny Dyer in that first match, like you mentioned, had a phenomenal game and kind of 4 turnovers, won a whole heap of tackles, running hard with the ball. And then the second game, he had about 4 penalties against him trying to win a turnover in the breakdown. Yeah. And it was kind of that huge momentum shift of being on top of the world in that last game, couldn't put a foot wrong, to them being kind of in that situation of, I guess not really, but it was almost desperation of trying to get that little moment in the game for Fiji that would turn away the momentum of the All Blacks, who just kept on kind of barreling it on.
Do you think the All Blacks needed to bounce back too? Like, obviously, they still won 57-23 or whatever it was last week, but do you feel like the All Blacks needed to bounce back after that performance, and they did?
I think they needed to bounce back because of the fact that everyone, after that last game, said the All Blacks aren't a physical enough side. And then Ardie Savea, Kira Ioane, they both went out there and they just started playing the Fijian game of just whacking anyone who had the ball in hand. It was aggressive from the All Blacks. Scott Barrett as well had a little bit of that enforcer role in the locks, and I feel like that really kind of helped almost not really throw Fiji off, but it was also a kind of an unexpected, well, they would have been expecting it, but it was a bit more of a, oh, okay, this is a little bit different from last week when we were able to power over in the rucks. Now we're kind of getting hit back, and we've got to look for a new tactic.
Just on Fiji, just quickly, they also have the ability to go into a game with the wrong mind process and the wrong idea completely. We saw that in the World Cup again when they played Uruguay and they lost to Uruguay 30-27. If they hadn't lost that game, they'd probably go through the group stages, because I do genuinely believe they beat Wales in that group, and Australia would have gone above them, and that would have actually knocked out Wales, to be honest with you. Or then again, it might have been an interesting game, a better game, even though it was more interesting. But Fiji weren't able to get the job done in the end. But I think if they had something to play for, they probably would have. But Fiji had this ability to be very good, but also not be very good at all, not be very good. And they did that against Uruguay, but yet they were able to have great performances against the Wallabies and Wales. In this one, they had a great performance last week and then not good performance this week, and they were two polar opposite results. So it's disappointing. I think New Zealand had to bounce back. I think they did bounce back. I still don't think that... I don't even know how to rate this performance, to be honest with you. Right, geez, that was a really Australian way to say it. But I don't even know how to rate this performance from the All Blacks. I thought they were clinical. I thought that Rishi Mo'unga was very good. I think that he's probably the guy you go forward with into the Bledisloe and Rugby Championship, to be honest with you. I thought that, their team, Sevu Reece, was unbelievable as usual, and the All Blacks looked good. But this is also one performance, and it's still there's still parts of it that kind of gives me a bit of an irky feeling about the All Blacks going forward.
Yeah, there were still little aspects of the game. The likes of, in these two games up against Fiji and also Tonga, they have been giving away a lot of penalties. In this one, it was a little bit better than the last, with still 11 penalties conceded. But I feel like that's still something that you can't afford to do in games up against the likes of the Pumas and also probably the Wallabies, to be fair, who will be able to kind of punish you for those of tapping over 3 points. That's actually one of the main reasons I feel in that Tri Nations last year, the All Blacks kind of ended up getting themselves into a tricky situation because of how many penalties they gave away against the Pumas for them just to be able to keep on knocking over the 3 points because they add up. Like, it's one of those ones, if you're giving away kind of over 10 penalties a game, you're probably giving away, I'd say, at least 3 or 4 kickable penalty opportunities, which is 2 tries.
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful in that regard not to end up just increasing that too much, or else you can end up.
Well, we will be talking. We are going to be talking about what were you going to say? End up kind of what?
Kind of end up throwing away, like, kind of, I guess, 3 points in a way, if that, or like 3 points in both regards.
Well, you would be giving away 3 points to teams like South Africa and Australia. Absolutely. You know, that you don't want to be doing that. Like Fiji, you can, and this is the biggest problem with me with Fiji as well, is that they went for the 3 and they should have been going for the try, because there's no way you're going to beat New Zealand by scoring 3 pointers. It's like, it's just simply not going to happen. You had to go for this try there, Fiji, and they didn't. But let's move on to the next game. Tonga, Samoa. Obviously, Samoa, congratulations. They move into the Rugby World Cup, and they will be moving along with, who were they in? England, Japan, Argentina, Samoa, and America's 2, which is probably going to be, I don't know. I
think it's out of USA, Canada, or Uruguay who can qualify for that one.
So Uruguay played Chile. So who do they play next? They must play one of those, because Uruguay playing Chile. I would have thought that
I believe so.
Because Chile they are 28th, so they're just outside of 25. Uruguay are in 17th, USA 16th, and Canada are in 22nd. Ooh. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I'm not too sure, but
it might actually be a closer game if one of those two sides play off against the likes of Uruguay.
Well, like I said, man, I think that Canada is better than USA, and I would personally put Uruguay above USA too. I know the USA are in 16th and Uruguay is 17th and Canada are 22, but I personally have, well, from what I've seen from Canada, them above the US, and I would have Uruguay above the US, because I think that Canada is probably above Hong Kong, Spain, and Romania, and you could argue Tonga at this point. Like, truly, you could nearly start to argue Tonga, but we're not going to. But yeah, Canada would be above Hong Kong, Spain, Romania for me, which puts them into that top 20. So, yeah, that's very close. They're all in the exact same area there. But who would you have actually out of those three this is actually irrelevant completely to Samoa versus Tonga, but who would you have as those three to go through based on what you've seen?
I mean, Canada did look pretty good in there, of course, pretty good, but they were up against...
to their standards against England,
up against hard sides. But Uruguay as well, I haven't seen too much of them other than, of course, this win or loss against Chile. I think they just...
they won 15-10. It wasn't exactly the most unbelievable. Well, actually, we can use this as speaking about Uruguay-Chile right now. We'll get into the Samoa-Tonga game in a moment. So Uruguay played Chile, and Uruguay won 15-10. And now you can go on with what you were saying, just to kind of clarify that we're going to actually talk about this now and not Samoa-Tonga just yet.
Yeah, well, Uruguay, it seemed like for them in that game, the rolling maul was their best friend. And I feel like that's something that quite a few of these sides, like we saw it for, I was about to transition to Russia, Portugal, we're jumping all over the place, but Russia in that game, like they use their forwards very well. And a lot of these teams are kind of adapting to that play style of getting it to those forwards, if that makes sense. They're almost playing that kind of, it's a dangerous game, the rolling maul, and definitely with the new rule set that is going to be added into competitions after the 1st of August, which is going to be before the Bledisloe Cup and also Rugby Championship. You've got that 50-22, and if you can get an attacking line out in that regard, like, you're in a good position to be able to use those big forwards. Rolling maul, like we've seen it so often, you can stop a rolling maul for about 3 seconds, but if they take one more step forward, in some games, you just keep on playing until pretty much it either goes down and you give away a penalty, or you can somehow try and get through the middle and kind of tie it up because of the fact that it seems to be like very generous almost with the attacking side. So these sides, they are all trying to play that same kind of rugby, and I feel like it's slowly working for them in terms of pushing them towards, like, I mean, Uruguay, I feel like could have a decent chance of taking down, like you mentioned, maybe the USA.
Yeah, look, I think that Uruguay in this game weren't greatly impressive. They played Chile, who are 28th, and not a great 28th, I would say that, well, I guess, they're definitely deserving of their spot. So, yeah, I'd say that it was a disappointing performance by the Uruguayans to only win 15-10 there. However, they still got the win. You'll take it, and overall, it was a performance that puts them into. Does it qualify them? Does it
I
qualify?
think they've still got to play
The
possibly the
USA
USA or Canada, if I'm not wrong, for that America's 2 spot. Because who's got America's 1 at this stage? Have they already
I'm not too
decided
sure.
on that one? Chile.
Qualifying begins with 2 elimination matches between Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Paraguay.
Uruguay may have qualified.
The winners of this round will move on to join Uruguay in round 2. No. So we're just looking at the qualification process right now in regards to Americas. We've actually just stopped for a little bit to just check everything out here. So with Americas 2, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and Paraguay must have all played off in 2 elimination matches there. Chile has then progressed because the winners of this round will move on to join Uruguay in round 2. So Chile would have to beat Brazil, Colombia, and Paraguay in that little 4-game stanza or 4-team stanza. They move on to play Uruguay in round 2. The top team from South America Rugby then plays against the top team from Rugby Americas North. The winner of this match will qualify for the World Cup as America's 1. So basically, it's going to be Uruguay versus whoever Rugby Americas North is, which is either Canada or America. I'm assuming it's going to probably be the USA. That's an assumption. If you correct us in the comment section, please. The loser of this match then plays the winner of a playoff between the second best teams in South America and the second best team in North America. The winner of this final matchup qualifies as America's 2. So, assuming Uruguay would lose to USA or USA loses to Uruguay, this is confusing for people out there who don't really know rugby, but it makes a lot of sense to me, I guess. But does it make sense to you, bro?
Yeah, a little bit.
Basically, Uruguay will play USA or Canada, and then, for example, let's assume USA wins. Uruguay will then play. Safely assume Canada, and then whoever wins that will then progress to America's 2. But because USA beat Uruguay, USA progress to America's 1. Do you get it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm assuming this is right. If I am wrong, in the comment section, please do let us know. But getting back to this game, Uruguay for me didn't look greatly impressive. I thought that they beat a relatively poor or pretty poor 28th ranked Chile. I don't really have a great deal about positivity to say about Chile overall. I think that they are better than the teams below them, but I don't think they're better than the teams above them. I think they're perfectly ranked right now. For me, look, Uruguay going forward, what I just said in the assumptions kind of chat was that USA would win. I do think, based on kind of what I've just seen now with USA having a good crack against the English, and also, they got flogged by the Irish, to be completely honest with you. But in the same sense, I think there was enough positivity about that England result to say that they're probably going to go through as an America's 1 and knock out Uruguay. Would you disagree?
No, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so I don't really have a great deal more to say about that game, but we just sat here for about 15 minutes trying to find the qualification process and finding everything out. So, I hope you do understand, and do let us know in the chat and comment section if you think there's something else. But yeah, 15-10 Uruguay, congratulations. Let's move on. Let's move on actually to the Samoa Tonga game that we're going to speak about. Obviously, Samoa won this one. They move into the World Cup with England, Japan, Argentina, and this is why we got to it, America's 2, which I personally believe is going to be either Canada or Uruguay. I'm going to say Canada makes it.
Okay.
What do you say?
I'll go Uruguay just to have that 50-50. We'll have to wait and see.
What was your thoughts on the Samoa and Tonga game?
I feel like the weather conditions weren't the ones that either side would have been wanting for this second matchup. Like, they would have been wanting it to be dry so that they could do those backline movements. Even with those conditions, though, Rodney Iona at number 10 for Manu Samoa was just doing wide cutout balls for fun during that match, and they were finding the hands of the wingers. Also, we did see Tamatine have a decent run round out on the field, and he seems to be one that, if there wasn't the likes of TJ Perenara kind of lurking at the Hurricanes, perhaps he would slowly get himself into that starting lineup, because the way he's been playing for Samoa, you can just see that, for one, his tackling is very good. Like, I feel like that's one aspect of his game that people probably underestimate a little bit, but he makes a lot of tackles from that number 9 position, which normally some can be guilty of leaking, like just letting the player kind of through, and then that creates the break. But he's always just round the ankles, slow him down, chop him down, and then sometimes get back up, get the turnover. But overall, I mean, Samoa, before this match started, for Tonga to have to win this match by 30 points, I think it was
ridiculous, yeah.
It was just, unfortunately for them, not going to be happening. Like, first step for them in this game would have been to try and get that win, but unfortunately just didn't quite work out.
Samoa have actually done really well recently to get to the position of they are currently sitting in. They are currently in 13th. So they were actually, I believe, at the beginning of 2019, sitting around the 19 area. I think they were around 19th, 20th even at some stage. Now they're 13th. I think this was a very easy match here for the Samoans. And sorry, Tongans, but they obviously beat you well in the first game and also well in the second game. We spoke about our problems with Tonga in the first podcast we had last week. Same things are still there, same factors. Now, look, they play the Cook Islands this week, and then I think the winner of that game, is it a two-legger, this one?
I think something to do with Hong Kong's in there, but that might be for the loser of this match.
Hong Kong is for the winner. No, it wouldn't be for the loser. It wouldn't be for the loser. No. Whoever wins this would then progress to play whoever. Surely not. Surely not, because whoever wins, why would the loser then play? Because this is for the number 2 spot.
Is there also a wild card?
We've just been discussing Samoa and Tonga and the fact that Samoa obviously qualified. Now we're figuring out with Tonga and the Cook Islands what would happen here. So with Oceania, Oceania is granted one direct qualification berth and will be awarded to the winner on aggregate of a Samoa-Tonga home and away playoff, which is obviously Samoa. The loser is due to play the winner of the 2021 Oceania's Rugby Cup to advance as Oceania 2 to a cross-regional playoff against Asia. But on the 30th of April, it was announced that the Oceania Rugby Cup would not take place, and as the highest-ranked side out of the entrance, the Cook Islands would progress to the Oceania 2 playoff. So basically, whoever wins this game makes the World Cup.
Okay. And the loser, no more.
I don't think the loser has a chance. I don't think there's anything else, no. So I think that would be it. I don't think Hong Kong has a chance. If we are wrong again, please let us know in the comment section. But from what I can see here, obviously, whoever wins out Tonga and the Cook Islands would be progressing to the Rugby World Cup. Jeez, been a difficult one here. Obviously, the qualification process is quite difficult to wrap your head around, but Samoa very easy. Do you think they have any kind of chances, considering how much better they are in a group of England, Japan, and Argentina?
It's a bit of a tough one because we see last time that they played Japan in the Rugby World Cup, it was actually while it was in Japan, and it was 38 points to 19. So, but they've come a long way since there, I feel, Samoa. Like, they seem to be slowly building up that game. That they're in a tough pool, though. England, I feel like they're probably... Are they I don't even know if they're the safest. Who else? Ireland is in there. No. It's England, Argentina. Japan,
Argentina, Samoa, and then America's 2, which was, what we said before, which is either Uruguay, USA, or Canada.
I think it's probably... It would be a big upset for them to be able to make it. But with how far they've come in just the last kind of couple of years, in another couple of years, perhaps they can make their way right towards...
We also have no idea what's happening with Japan right now. We haven't...
That's true.
We have no idea what's happening with them and if they're going to be able to recapture the form and the brilliant form we saw them when they were in their own home World Cup back in 2019. However, home World Cups can bring difference out of you. You know what I mean? Like, it can make you better than you actually are. So I think that Japan are good, don't get me wrong, but will they be able to recapture that same form, that same brilliant form we saw in 2019? I'm not too sure. Argentina are 50-50 if they can keep progressing despite having no Jaguares, and also the fact that I still have them above Samoa. I definitely still have them above Samoa, don't get me wrong, but I really am confused about them long-term, 2 years down the track, further down the track. England are obviously England. England will top the group. I don't care what anyone thinks. England will top that group. I don't care how bad they are, they will still top that group. They're still a Tier 1 nation, a top 3 nation, and I don't necessarily know if they'll still be a top 3 nation then, but they still absolutely will be the best team in that group. But I think Samoa are progressing well, could compete with Argentina in that group, could compete with Japan, I believe, and obviously will probably beat that USA, Canada, or Uruguay. So I actually give them a bit better chance than most would probably assume.
Yeah, I think the way that they've been going here, like, even though I feel like this is becoming a broken record, even though it was up against Tonga, which I have nothing against Tonga. I actually really enjoyed watching them play up against the All Blacks, which sounds like a weird statement because of the result, but not too many sides get beaten by that many points, but still try like their hardest to be able to still get some points on the board, even though you're just absolutely like getting destroyed out there. Like those final moments when they were still going, kicking for the corner, still going for the scrum, still fighting for 10 phases, just trying to find that gap. Like, I feel like they've got a lot of heart, and that is something that can help you. And I feel like Samoa have that same passion. Like, you see it in the huckers before the game, like how much it
Could
means
be
to
the
both of
rivalry,
these
though,
sides.
that's bringing it out of them. It could
That
be
is
the
true.
rivalry, because obviously Samoa and Tonga have a massive rivalry. I'm not too sure, but I think
Mm.
that Samoa will progress better into the future. I don't think that these 2 games against Tonga necessarily prove a great deal, because obviously it's Tonga, but Samoa going forward will improve. And especially considering, like I said, they have made leaps and bounds in the 2 years, despite not playing a great deal of rugby from where they were early 2019 to now. I think it's commendable, to say the least. But before we get into the big game of Australia and France, let's quickly talk about Russia and Portugal. My boys, my Portuguese boys. You know what I'm saying? I really like these guys. I really do. They won 49-26 over the Russians, and I thought this was a massive step up from their victory against the Netherlands last week.
Yeah, they played well in this game. Russia also, I feel like, need that little bit of credit for like some of their attacking players. Once again, talking about those forwards, like they seem to be more of that forward orientated team, whereas Portugal, like their wingers and like that back
They're
line,
absolutely backs the Portuguese. Yeah.
it is very sharp at times. And I feel like it's one of those ones, they moved up from 20th to 19th, if I'm not wrong, you mentioned.
Yeah. Well, they were 23 or 2 weeks ago or so too.
So maybe they just keep on slowly trying to keep on building their way up.
A couple of years ago, I believe they were outside the top 30. So they are definitely moving up, and now they're in the top 20 now. And like I told you guys last week, I believe they're above Tonga. I think they're probably around the 15 area. I think they could compete with Samoa. I do. I truly believe Portugal and Samoa will be a good game. I'm not too sure about them going up against Japan or anything like that, but which is just that brim with Italy. I think Portugal could give Italy a good crack. I'm really believing in them. 49-26 is a big result against the Russians, who can be gritty, can be grindy, have big forwards, and aren't a pushover team in that middle-ranked area. You know, they are one of the quality teams of that area, because although they are now down in 23, they are still one of those quality teams that you got to give credit for beating. Now, Netherlands, not so much. They're just outside the top 30, or they're just inside the top 30. I'm not too sure, but you know, they're around that area. They are currently sitting in. They're currently sitting in 24, so they're actually just with Russia there. I thought they were worse. They probably are below Namibia, Brazil, and Belgium for me. But overall, yeah, look, I think this was a big performance for them. I thought their number 10, their fly half, was fantastic in Portela. I thought Portela was fantastic. I think he was really good. I think he was really good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the Portuguese play. And I'm not too sure who they come up next. I don't know what their future games look like, but I'm one of the biggest Portuguese backers right now. I am. I really am. So Portugal, if you want to send me one of your jerseys, I'll appreciate it. But
I would take one also if they.
We'll take two. There we go. But we'll move into the final game, which is the Aussies and the France game. Honestly, clearly the best game this week. We all know that. 33-30 to the Aussies, and it was a tough grinding affair. It was very fast and very pacey. However, there was a red card in the first 5 minutes of the game, and it was to Marika Koroibete. Now, I will quickly say this, just before we get into it. I get, in rugby union, that any contact with the head is a big no-no. However, we've clearly seen the player go down into this. We've also seen Koroibete hit him on the chest, shoulder area, and then because the player's also coming down, it's kind of bounced up to this area here. I have absolutely no goddamn idea how you could give it a red card. I could say at very, very most it's a yellow card. I think it's lucky to be a penalty, but because it does come into the contact with the head at some stage, I guess you give the penalty regardless. I still think a yellow card is too much, and don't even start me on what I think about it being a red card. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was a big call in that game early on.
5 minutes in too.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Wallabies straight away at that stage, you could hear Suncorp Stadium. It was absolutely erupting.
Have you seen my stream? Have you seen what my stream was? I was livid. But go on.
And I feel like this is going to sound like a strange statement, but I feel like it's not 100% the referee's fault in this situation.
Timo, absolutely too.
I feel, and the TMO,
and
but
the
I feel
referee
like,
and the player.
yeah, I feel like at this situation, I think it's the World Rugby rules that really need looked at again, because they've only recently changed them. But it's also that factor of, I feel like the common sense of seeing it for yourself. Like those referees, you could see Brendan Pickerel there when Ben O'Keefe was listing what he thought of it. He kind of did that shrug as if it was almost a
I
like
thought I heard
sympathy
him say
shrug.
something like I don't think there's anything in it. I think you could hear them talking about it. But go on with what you're saying. But I swear I heard one of the referees say I didn't see anything in it.
Because it's a hard one for them as well, because they've been given this very strict kind of guidelines of, if you like see anything similar, this is what we have to call it as. It's like the player getting taken out in the air. If he lands on his head, they go, it's a red. If there's contact for the head, they say it's a red. But I feel like that needs to be relooked at in regards to the factor that you can't really, like, not every challenge is going to be the same in that regard, kind of thing. Like, you need to have some sort of common sense type thing where the referees aren't forced into a position like they were in that game, because you could see it. They didn't want to give it as the red card. Even Ben O'Keefe walking over, he was kind of going to it as if to say,
did you think that the referee wanted to give it? Because I didn't think so at the time that he wanted to give it.
Nah, he would have, like, because he could see that, like, it was only, like, for me, at most, I was saying yellow card as well. And I don't think that's like any sort of Southern Hemisphere like bias, because of the fact, as you probably know, I sit on the fence for every single game.
That came in and said they didn't believe it was a red card or even a yellow card. A lot of people were saying it wasn't even a penalty. A lot of the French were. But
yeah, it's a hard one, because like you could see that ducking factor, but then straight away, like, none of the referees in that game wanted, I don't feel personally, they wanted to give that as a red. And I don't think any of them saw it as a red, but the rule book, the way it's written, when it had that angle that showed shoulder to the neck area, they go, he came in at force with speed. There's like player danger involved because of the factor of that speed, like hitting that player. Geelong didn't help the situation. I'll just say that right now.
He's a flog. I'm sorry. I'm going to throw it out there. He's a flog. Like, what is this? We're not here to watch football, you know. Or sorry, soccer. A lot of people I call it football. But if for French people out there, you call it football too. But this is not soccer. You know, this is not diving. We've seen in rugby league, actually, with Origin, is that the Queensland and New South Wales hate each other. They do. But they had a gentleman's agreement not to be flogs and dive if someone kind of comes in contact with like this area or just dives to try and get a penalty. We've seen that in the biggest rivalry, one of the biggest rivalries in world sport. I know a lot of people don't necessarily know about USA and parts of Europe and stuff like that, but it is one of the biggest rivalries in world sport, right? So if they can come to an agreement about not being a flog, then surely you would see someone have, like, I don't even know how to explain this, but it's just, it's so terrible that we've seen rugby union of all sports, one of the toughest, most physical sports on the planet, now turn to looking at the captain of the French team. It's the captain, right?
Yeah.
Going down and faking it, like, bullshit if he's got an injury. Like, are you shitting me? Like, if you think he's got an injury there, you're drunk. Like, you are drunk. There's no way he had an injury there. And he did go off for a HIA because he had to, because if you get you clutched at the face, you have to go off for a HIA. But, you know, it was disgusting to see. Disgusting to see that rugby union of all sports has gone down this path. Do you think we might see more of this in the future, or do you think this is a wake-up call for everybody else to say, I don't want to do that because I don't want to cop the criticism that he's copping?
One of those ones that, unfortunately, because of the result of this one, I feel like there will be that like factor in the back of a player's mind. Now, because of what we saw here, if he hadn't gone down like that, do you still think they would have ended up giving it as a red card? Or would they have even looked at it?
Probably would have moved on.
Look?
I think it probably would have moved on. And I think that if he doesn't go down there, maybe the TMO comes in and says it's probably. I think it could have been a yellow. Yeah. I think that they might have given a yellow, but that would have just been just to calm the I guess rule book, as you were saying.
Mm.
So
I think they do need to try and have it, because at this stage the referees, I feel, are that worried about what decision, like, because they're following all the protocols in terms of, right, it's this mitigation, everything like that. They have to go through about a 6, like they might as well have it on a bloody notepad, that they got to go, right, there's this, and because of the way we scored 4 out of 10, which means it's yellow, but if it went up to a 7, that means that we've got to give it as a red. You got to try and give them a little bit of slack, because I mean, Ben O'Keefe's one of the most hated men in New Zealand at the moment, but I don't think it was all him. I think he had the other referees around him, for one, who I guess could have tried to talk the TMO out of it alongside them, but then it's also the World Rugby
the
kind of
ultimate
rules.
decision comes down to the referee, however. The ultimate decision, because the TMO is suggesting a red card there.
Yeah.
The TMO is suggesting a red card. The ultimate decision does come down to the referee. He is the guy that makes the decision. So he's taken it and he's done it. And I personally at the time actually looked at him. I don't know if I said this on a stream, but my reaction on a stream is obviously very reactive. It's very reactive. It is. Like, fair enough. It is reactive. I'm an Australian, and I was watching probably our test series, a third game, 5 minutes in, losing our best player, Koroibete, who's been fantastic the whole series. Well, not our best player overall, but just like he is one of our best players, absolutely a key part of our team. And going down to 14 men against a French team that hasn't won a series since in the Southern Hemisphere since they beat you guys in 2019 in New Zealand. 2009 in New Zealand. That was the last time.
To add to that as well, I believe it is the first series that Australia have won a 3-match series in about 7 years or so. So there was a lot on the line for both of these sides as well.
But yeah, so overall to say, I at the time, and you guys can't see my reaction now, unfortunately. I have taken away because it was very reactive. But
did you?
It's going to be taken away. But like, it's going to be taken away. But I at the time didn't think the referees wanted to make the decision. I was thinking this in my head. I don't know if I said it, but I could see it in his face. He didn't want to do it, but he did do it, and I don't know. It was very tough to watch. But anyway, let's move off for the red card, because we all know it was the wrong decision. It was. But then again, technically the rules are just wrong as well. Common sense should prevail, but it doesn't always prevail. Doesn't normally prevail, obviously. But the game itself, Australia come back from 10-0 down with a red card in the first 10 minutes to win 33-30. The French had a chance to take the penalty, but they obviously wanted to win the series and not draw the series, because if they had got that was still a difficult kick, though, to be fair. It was still a difficult kick from 50 metres out to the right-hand side, and with the inevitable Australians. I know what Australians are like in the crowd. He would have been really close to that crowd over there on that far edge side as well. So it would have been interesting to hear what the words that would have been used there. People would have been Googling French swear words, I guarantee it. But I thought that Australia's performance was one of the best against all odds performances I've seen from them in, 2 decades. In 2 decades, I've never seen this Wallabies team or a Wallabies team in a couple of decades actually put in the effort that we saw in that game. I've seen some good efforts over time. I've seen some good games over time, but this was one of those ones where we were down and out. We gave up the red card, and then we gave up a try as well. We actually had a try taken off us, which was the right call, but we had a try taken off us. It was close. It was close actually not being part of it, but had a try taken off us. We had our first injury to Filippo Dungunu, the first minute of the game, first phase of the game. We have both wingers gone. Dungunu and Koroibete both gone. So and then to give out that try straight away, like I've never seen a more gritty and passionate performance from the Wallabies.
I agree 100% there. Like, for them to straight away, like you mentioned, lose both wingers, like they were my 2 players that I thought, right, this backline is going to work together, because they've got Koroibete now out on that wing, and they've got him. Unfortunately, Tom Wright, he will know it as well. He didn't have the best couple games up against France. So they then have Dungunu back, who, when he's on form, and he can be a danger in terms of on attack. Defensively, sometimes questionable.
Yeah,
but
like
also,
the All Blacks game 2 of last year. Yeah, we go on.
It was Reece Hodge involved in that one.
Don't you start. You keep talking. Stop bringing up Reece Hodge's name. He's a buddy, I tell you.
We should get him on.
We should not get him on. Actually, if we got him on, Reece Hodge, I want him on. I do want him on. But, look, I get it's difficult. I get it's difficult. But in the same sense, I don't forgive him for smiling when he was going up with that. Anyway, we're not going to talk about Reece damn well Hodge, right? He's the bane of my existence until he makes up for it. And he actually wanted to take that kick at the end of the game. I know he did. I know he would have wanted it to. I guarantee you he would have wanted to make up for it. Also, we missed a kick from right in front. We missed a kick from right in front as well. So we
and
actually...
so did Jamania, which was one of the craziest thing I had seen because of the fact he had been 100% throughout the whole series. About 11 from 11, and I jinxed them badly on live stream because I was like, imagine if this next kick, the one that matters, is actually the one that the pressure just builds up just that little bit too much.
Well, man, I was sitting there for like 10 minutes, for the whole time he was waiting to take the kick, and I was just like, this guy's one of the best kickers in the world. Like, he's not missing it. Like, he's just the best kicker, one of the best kickers in the world. Another loss that I obviously noticed that there's still no James O'Connor. We thought that he might be coming back, but he's still not back yet. That would have been a massive inclusion if we could have had him. But I want to ask one question before we move into our play performance of the week and team of the week. Is everyone, especially the French, everyone is coming out and trying to downplay this Wallabies performance, because they're saying, oh, it's the French B team or French C team, some people are saying, and like you should have beaten them. But I also want to point out that there is still players out for Australia who were down a red card for 75 minutes. Dungunu out as well. And like I said, the injuries and people just not being able to play in this game or this series overall. Like, this wasn't our A grade team. What would you say? Would you agree? Would you disagree in regards to the statement of the Wallabies being downplayed because of this not being a straight up French team?
I'm one of those people, I don't like the terminology of like a B team or a C team.
It's disrespectful to the player. It is. It's disrespectful to the players.
Like, because at the end of the day, the way I look at it, like, even if there was the youngest player, well, not the youngest player in New Zealand, he's probably just come out of the womb, but like a young player for New Zealand brought into the All Blacks, like, and you don't go, oh, he's a D-grade player who's just been pushed up there. Like, you go, he's in the All Blacks jersey.
I feel, just to quickly go in here, I feel it might be a defense mechanism against being able to be insulted by the other team. I think it's a defense mechanism to say, like, okay, this guy's young. If he's good, I'm going to take advantage of how good he is and say how good he is, and it really helped the team. If he's bad, I can blame him.
Yeah. We've seen it in the past before with young players pretty much getting absolutely just destroyed.
Yep.
Like, but it's one of those ones, I feel like, normally, like, no matter what, I always look at a team as the team, if that makes sense, rather than like kind of the grade of some of the players. Yes, they'll have young players, like everyone does in these matches, because of the fact that it's all about trying to grow those younger players into, like, they're going to be the guys who are going to be stars in 5 years' time, that you're going to be buying all their merchandise and like getting their name on the back of your shirt. Yeah. Because like, but to give them a chance, you got to get them up against opposition like that are at that next level kind of thing. If that makes sense. I feel like I'm rambling.
No, I get what you're saying, but I will say this, like, I say it, I do. I say Welsh C team, you know, Australian B team, French C team, whatever. But I do find that it would be like, how do you think those French lads feel? You know, how they've had such a good performance. You know, they've had such a good performance for 3 games. No, maybe not the third game per se, because they did obviously come up against a man down 75 minutes. But, you know, they had such a good 3-game series, and yet all people are talking about is, oh, these guys aren't that good. You know, this is just the C team. You know, you wait till the actual good guys come in. And say, well, what the shit? These guys have just been fantastic in the last 3 games, and you're against a good Australian team. Like, how much do you really think the French improve? The French did well, but the Wallabies are still going to be in that series the entire time, and they're still probably going to win game 1, in my personal opinion. Actually, no, maybe not game 1, sorry. Realistically, the French threw that one away, and maybe the experience probably would have got them over the line. So I disagree with myself there. But then if you give them a full-strength French team, the thought, like the way you go into a game and mentally process a game, that game could be completely different. You know, that whole series is completely different if you have the full-strength French team, you know. And then you have a full strength Australian team. The whole series is different. The gameplay, every single aspect of the game has changed. How do you know that they win instead of losing? Because the game wouldn't be probably a 3-point game in the end. It could be a blowout. It could be a 2-point game. It could be a 5-point game. The whole game has changed. So I hate the thought process of they would have won if they had these players in, you know, because it just changes the whole dynamic and every aspect of the game. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah, it also puts a lot of extra pressure on those players
to come back and have an unbelievable performance.
Yeah. And it's one of those ones, yes, it's tough like, I feel like I'm glad I watch it from here and I'm not one of those players out on the field, because like the amount of pressure, like to be able to perform in that jersey, definitely when you are getting called like a C-class player, like if you have a good game, then, they might upgrade you to a B, but you're still not as good as this fella who's like been out for 6 months with a leg injury.
Yeah.
Like,
I just want to say, I give massive credit to the French team. I do. I give massive credit to the French team for, although they might not have had the team they necessarily wanted to put out there, their depth is very good, and the players that they have can compete. I reckon this team could compete with some of those big guys. I really do. I think that this French team, some of the lads that we saw coming through the ranks, could honestly compete for the spots with the big guys. So, look, congratulations to Australia. We won. We won the series, and actually, we can quickly talk. No, we'll talk about the Bledisloe Cup next week. We'll talk about the Bledisloe Cup between Australia and New Zealand next week, because New Zealand have announced their team lineups. We'll speak about that next week because we haven't gone for quite some time here. But I think that'll be more interesting. We'll explain why it'll be more interesting next week, but I think that Bledisloe Cup this year is actually more interesting than it is each year, because there are positives and negatives for the All Blacks, and there's massive positives and massive negatives for the Wallabies as well. So it's going to be very interesting. But do you have anything else to say about that Australia-France game?
I just think overall, like, I feel like that whole series was just a very good one. Like, I feel like it was one of the best series, like, in a long time, in terms of the fact that every single minute of every single game almost, you wouldn't have been able to pick that winner right up until that final whistle.
Absolutely.
Like, the fact that every single game went down to, like, I mean, the first one, what was it, the 75th minute or something like that? Second game, 78th. And then third game, I think it was around that 78th as well.
No, the first game was 82nd.
Oh, sorry, yeah, 82nd. That one actually went past the full 80, so that almost adds
a minute. Another thing to throw out here in regards to the French and other people saying that the French would have won this series in a clean sweep or whatever, is that Australia threw that game away in the second game just as much as the French threw the game away in the first game, because Australia had the ball and had the scrum. They had the scrum with a minute to go there and gave away the penalty. They threw that game away just as much as the French did. And this is also, as you guys put it, and as I would say too, not the strongest lineup as you would imagine with the Wallabies. So I just don't really understand how people are coming to this conclusion overall. But overall, man, one of the best series we've seen in a very long time. Congratulations to Australia for winning. Congratulations to France for competing as well as they did. Moving on now, we are going to get into our player performances of the week. Now, this player performance is literally anyone in World Rugby right now. It can even be, British and Irish Lions, but preferably not. We prefer to keep it inside we'll give honourable mentions to the British and Irish Lions players, basically. But overall, we can choose however we feel like to choose this player based on how well they did. So you can go first with the player performance of the week.
Right. So I'm going with a little bit of probably one that people aren't really thinking of. And I didn't even think of him until about a minute ago. But I am going to go with Michael Alatoa for Samoa.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like possibly a little bit of influenced by the rest of how the games for Samoa have gone. But I feel like in this game as well, like, he just puts in a shift out on the field each week for his side. Like, even though, like, they were going to be beating Tonga anyway, like, he still made, I think it was something like 14 tackles. And, like, he gets to a lot of those breakdowns that I feel like people don't really give him too much credit for.
Alrighty, well, I've got a couple of honourable mentions just quickly, and then I'll get into my big one. So a second honourable mention definitely does go to Noah Alessio. I thought he was one of the best Australian on the field. I thought that we had quite a few good players, but I thought that he, honestly, I haven't seen as good a performance from him in a long time. Like, Noah Alessio really, that was the best performance I've seen from him personally. So I'm not going to put him as the number one for the time being, because I do believe these two guys, well, the other one's an honorable mention too, but I do believe the number one does deserve it more. But however, I do think Noah Alessio, which is surreal. Alessio was surreal. He really got us over the line. Second honorable mention will go to Ali Price from the British and Irish Lions. I thought that he was really quality there and did a good job there for the British and Irish Lions to really get a significant win there. I saw one of his passes, the way he was playing with just the whole gameplay that he was setting up with was very nice. I thought that Ali Price, and I mentioned him before when we were talking about it, just because I thought that he had such a good game, and just because he is competing with Conor Murray there. He is competing with a big-time player. And I think that he can be put into the talking points with him, which from that performance shows that was such a good performance that you can even put him into that same discussion points.
Yeah.
Number one, we'll actually go to Richie Mo'unga from the All Blacks. I thought that he played fantastic. I thought that he really solidified himself as a guy that I would be taking through the Bledisloe Cup. I would be taking him as the guy for the All Blacks and putting him into the Bledisloe Cup and the Rugby Championship, sorry. I think that he's, what did I write here? I had unreal kicking to put Fiji in the back foot and a couple of beauty assists. Like, he was fantastic with a couple of his ball. I think he got 3 try assists, and he was just, his gameplay until about the 60th minute when he got taken off was fantastic. I really thought he brought the house down there for the All Blacks personally, especially backing up after that relatively poor performance against the Fijians in the first week.
Did
Would
he
you
play
disagree
against
with
Fiji
that?
in the first week?
No, I'm not saying his performance. I'm saying the All Blacks performance. No, you're right. No, I'm not saying his performance. I'm saying the All Blacks performance, the relatively poor performance from the All Blacks against Fiji the first week. He comes in the second week and obviously, dominates. I think Barrett played the first week, didn't he?
Yeah, and then they had 2 other players off the bench, Damian McKenzie at 10 or kind of 22.
Yeah. Would you disagree with me in regards to Sam Mo'unga?
I feel like I'm a little bit disappointed that I forgot about him because I've got my spreadsheet in front of me, right? Yeah. And it's got like all of the try scorers this week. And I feel like I was looking through them, looking for my player of the week type thing. But never once did it hit me to think of the players who are actually setting up those tries. Like, because for me, my reasoning behind not giving it to Sevu Reece was actually because they were pretty much run-ins, I think at least 2 of his tries. And then the other one was quite good from him. But overall, when you think about it, who passed that ball to him to be able to score the try? I missed out.
Absolutely. It is what it is, man. So I still had a great performance there. But I thought Richie Mo'unga was fantastic for the All Blacks. But let's move into the team of the week. I'll go first here. And I have to go with the Australians. I do. They were down for a man for 75 minutes in that game. Koroibete, who started off the game by scoring a try. They got denied and taken away as a try. Has been one of the best, if not the best, for the Wallabies throughout the series. Taken away in the first 5 minutes of the game against a good French team who had pushed them and won the second game. Lost the first game, but still pushed them within that 3-2 point margin, and still able to come out over the top as well. And Suncorp, we still haven't lost at Suncorp, I believe, since 2015, 2016, which is a long time. Australia really have called Suncorp a strong home base for us. So, look, I think that Australia have proven through that performance that they are a gritty team, passionate team, and can get back into the big boys if they start to put their process in place like I've been talking about for the last 2 years.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Although I tried to switch it up and have another kind of slightly, I guess, another honourable mention, I guess we could call it, in terms of the fact that I think overall, for me, it's not as good as the Wallabies, but I feel like the All Blacks also should be a decent honourable mention in regards to the fact that from last week of getting like physically dominated in most breakdowns to then come out this week and kind of in regards to the factor of like putting Fiji in a very tough position on the field, like pretty much all the time, other than that first 20, like the first 20 we'll have to forget about because that wasn't ideal for them, of course. But after that, I felt like if you cut out that first 20 and then go from then on, like they had a very good game. But of course, Wallabies, it doesn't get much better than being able to win a game when it seems like it all is against you in that regard, but you are still able to find your way to the final minute once again. That game went to.
And we're down 10-0, mind you, as well, with the red card. We're down 10-0 with the red card. But that's funny. Obviously, the Australian here has said the Wallabies are the team of the week, and the Kiwi here has taken the All Blacks as the team of the week. So people are probably like, well,
I almost said
you can't argue it, though. No, but you can't really argue it. Like, Samoa did it, but it's against Tonga, and it's also... I hate to keep disrespecting Tonga like that, but I'm sorry, Tongans are probably going to be talking like that themselves, to be honest with you. What are the other performances? There wasn't... Look, Portugal against Russia, okay, cool. It was a good performance, but was it better than 75 minutes red card? No. Was it better than the All Blacks bouncing back against the Fijians after what they did last week? Probably not. Uruguay, disappointing, despite winning. Samoa qualified for the World Cup, you could argue that. And I don't even... What was the other games?
Argentina, Wales. I felt like Argentina, too many handling errors.
Too many handling errors. And also, you can make massive excuses for the Welsh. And then with the other game was the British and Irish Lions Cup be including that. So, yeah, I thought overall there's no way you could – I think that on everyone's books it should be Australia as the number one this week. On everyone's books, there's no arguments about it. Not much rugby coming up this week, though, man. Not much rugby coming up this week. Do you know the two games? I think there's only two games, isn't there? Tonga and Cook Islands and somebody else?
Yeah, and also British and Irish Lions taking on the Springboks. I don't know what to do with myself for the week. I have so much free time.
Yeah, well, we got that. But then I will be streaming the Olympic Sevens. I will be definitely streaming that one next week. I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that'll be an absolutely awesome tournament there for the Olympic Sevens. And then also there's the women's tournaments as well. So hopefully the Aussies can do that. But I do believe Fiji are probably favourites. Not too sure if you guys want us to talk about Sevens because there's a lot to go over as well, and it is different to 15. So we'll probably leave the sevens off this podcast, but we do hope you have enjoyed. Obviously, this is the Kiwi Lads. You guys can go and find his channel. I'll leave it in the description below, and also at the end of this video, there's a link to his channel. So if you love your rugby content, he's the man to go to. If you do love your rugby union, rugby league, and whatever sport, we basically do everything here. So hit that subscribe button, smash that thumbs up button so that we know that you are enjoying this podcast. Another podcast will come out next Wednesday, despite there not being a great deal of rugby. We still will be talking rugby. We're going to be previewing that Bledisloe Cup between the All Blacks and the Australians, which I believe is on the 7th of August, if I'm not mistaken. There's still plenty of rugby to come, and after the Olympics is actually when it really starts to get hot and heavy again. So head with that rugby championship coming on up. So looking forward to it. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Portugal, send us a jersey. We love you. Get around it. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. See you later.